Big tournament, sixth stop of the year for the Bassmaster Elite Series 2022. Tennessee River, the last stand in the southeast quadrant of the United States before we head up north for a three-tournament swing. Pickwick Lake and Ronnie Moore, everyone looking forward to that one. Everyone anticipating summertime. Pickwick, summertime conditions, ledge fishing. That's one of the most really highly valued techniques and experiences people can have in the sport of bass fishing.
One really cool thing about Pickwick is you can fish dam to dam, and we saw that this week. We saw people go all the way to the Wilson Dam. We saw people stay in Counce, Tennessee, where our host takeoff was this week. You can fish shallow, you can fish deep, you can fish mid-depth anywhere you want, and you can even go through the Tom Bigby Waterway and get away from some people and find your water. And we saw a handful of people, maybe 5 to 7 people, go down to Bay Springs Lake, and that's where our Mercury Move of the tournament is going to take us. And we're going to ride with John Cox, because John Cox has been oh so steady all season long. But honestly, I'll admit, the beginning of the year was tailored for John Cox. 2 events in Florida, 2 events near the spawn when it comes to Santee Cooper and Chickamauga. So the first 4 events, no surprise that he was on the top of the Progressive Angler of the Year race. But Tommy, this was an event that he texted me about and was worried about. He could have lost a lot of ground, but he was able to make the top 10 and survive.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody was asking, what is this guy possibly thinking? Bay Springs Lake is a place where you can go and get it. I mean, you're right. There's everything at Pickwick. There's giant flats, there's bluff walls, there's small and large tributaries. Bay Springs Lake, an interesting choice, to say the least.
Yeah, and one thing that John Cox really keyed in on, and we saw him keep it as simple as, he keeps it simple everywhere we go. No electronics for the most part, keeps a wacky rig in his hand, and that wacky rig Berkeley General was huge for him because he just found, with his laser eyesight, a bunch of brim beds. And the brim beds this time of the year, you know, we go through the bass spawn, then we go through the shad spawn, and that's a good time to get right early in the morning. Well, the brim beds kind of pop up right after that, and that is a place that big bass, after the post spawn, want to hang around. It's an easy meal. A bluegill, I mean, I feel like that's a filet mignon to us. Like, it's a way to fill yourself up. It's one big meal, and it's nice for the bass to hang around that area. One thing that's key, when you're fishing shallow, you got to have a lot of water to yourself. Only 5 or so anglers fishing Bay Springs Lake, and 0 on the final day other than him. He was able to run around and cover more water.
Yeah, even that brim bed situation got juiced up by a mayfly hatch also
exactly.
on the final couple of days as well. So yeah, it kind of did play into his hands a little bit, but boy, he made a move that surprised everyone.
It was a perfect storm for John Cox. And one thing about Bay Springs Lake, we saw the 715 from Tyler Rivette come from Bay Springs. We saw a couple decent limits, but nothing crazy except for John Cox. 15 pounds, 10 ounces on day 1. He was 33rd place. But with about 2 hours left on day 2, cut day, you do not want to get trapped outside the top 47. At that point in the day, he was hovering around 55th to 60th on our Bass Track leaderboard. Did not have a limit. Boy, did he get right and catch 2 good ones in the afternoon. Able to get a big limit, 22.3, one of the biggest bags of the day. I think he tied Cody Huff that day, 22.3. He was able to jump up into 5th place and never left the top 10 after that. Was able to make it work, felt so comfortable. John Cox did it his way, and one thing's for sure, if Brandon Palaniuk had to leave this event, he didn't know, but if he had to, John was able to execute and do his job before we make our trip up north.
And every one of us following the Progressive Bassmaster Angler of the Year race kind of benefits, kept it tight. We love a tight race going into the final third of the season.
He did. John Cox only 18 points behind Brandon Palaniuk. Now started the event 20 points behind, and that's funny because he said, I'm 20 points behind fishing against a guy who's great offshore his electronics. Boy, I'm in for some trouble if I lose ground this week, because we'll go up north after that. He didn't lose ground, gained 2 points. But we did see 3rd place drop back about 50 points behind those 2, and then we see 4th even more behind him. So it's really still a 3 or 4 man race, but those 2 at the top have separated themselves, and John probably wiping some sweat off his brow because he survived Pickwick.
If you can't count out John Cox at Pickwick, you can't count him out anywhere. His style of fishing, just incredible. Like you say, 2 rods on the deck. Both of them have the same bait tied on.
Yeah, his Mercury Move of the tournament is probably his move to Bay Springs, and it's also his move in the Angler of the Year race. Even though it was gaining 2 points, he didn't lose any ground, and that was key for him as we do make our turn. We're 2/3 of the way through the season. It happened quickly, Tommy, but we have 3 events left. 1 at the St. Lawrence, 1 at Lake Oahe, and 1 at the Mississippi River.
Can't wait.